Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the November 12th, 2025 meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality. I think we can confirm that we have quorum. Madam Clerk, thank you. So we'll call to order and do the land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Community announcements. Any community announcements? No community announcements. Approval of the minutes from October 29th. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the approval of the October 29th minutes? Commissioner Carter, Commissioner Bezic-Escalera, thank you very much for being mover and seconder. Are there any errors or omissions that anyone would like to make note of in the minutes from October 29th? Noting none, we'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passed. Thank you kindly. Approval of the order of business and any approval or deletions. Madam Clerk, is there any additional deletions that may or
I would like to note that a couple of items need to be requested to be deferred to our December 3rd meeting, namely item 10.3.1, the cybercrime presentation, item 10.4.2, Commissioner Kent, update on Nova Scotia Association of Police Conference Governance Fall 2025 Conference, and item 10.4.3, Commissioner Kent, Halifax Board of Police Commissioners Board Police Governance Excellence Award. So if I can have someone move those deferrals, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Commissioner Hinch has moved so. Seconder, Commissioner Bezic-Escalera seconded. Thank you. All those, or any additions or deletions from any members, commissioners? Barring none, can we call for the question? All those in favor of the changes to the order of business? Motion passed. 10.3.3, amendments to the Board of Police Commissioners Administrative Policy 1. Could I ask that a commissioner put the motion on the floor?
Sorry, Chair, we need to go back to item 5, conflict of interest.
We need to go back to item 5. Oh, geez, sorry. You know what? I jumped a whole page. My apologies. Pages were sticking together. All right. Business arising out of the minutes. Making note that there's none, we'll move on to number 6, call for declarations of conflicts of interest. Does any commissioner have any conflict of interest to declare as a result of any item on today's agenda? Okay, but seeing that there is none, we shall move on to item number 7, consideration of deferred business. I don't believe there's any, Madam Clerk.
Chair O'Malley, you're correct. There's no deferred business.
Okay. Item number 8, 8.1.1, in terms of correspondence, petitions, and delegations, are there any items, Madam Clerk, to acknowledge receipt of?
Chair O'Malley, the clerk's office did not receive correspondence for this meeting or petitions.
Okay, any petition? Oh, no petition. Okay. And we shall, does any commissioners have any petitions that they wish to share with us? Okay, moving on, 8.3.3. No presentations under that particular category. So we'll move on to number 9, information items brought forward. We're going to hit the reports and discussion. And up first is the 10.1, Halifax Regional Police, Royal Canadian Mounted Chief of Police updates. So we're going to start with Chief McLean. Chief McLean, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chair O'Malley and members of the board, everyone who's joining us online today, just want to touch on a couple investigations that we had within the last, I guess a month now, in terms of since the last time we were here. So last week, police arrested 2 men in relation to a homicide that had occurred on October 29th, that occurred approximately at 1:30 p.m. in Halifax. A 70-year-old man, Brian David Johnson, was assaulted in his residence. on Richmond Street and unfortunately succumbed to his injuries. The medical examiner service attended and conducted an autopsy, confirmed the manner of death to be a homicide. On November 4th, a 56-year-old man was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. And as well on November 6th, the second suspect, a 57-year-old man, was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Investigators do not believe this was a random act and do not anticipate any further arrests in this investigations. As always, our thoughts remain with Mr. Johnson's loved ones. Also, earlier this last month, we arrested a Halifax youth involved in what's called 764, which is an online violent extremist subgroup of the COM network. This investigation, led by our integrated Internet Child Exploitation Unit in partnership with the RCMP, really shows and highlights the growing risk of online communities that glorify violence and target children and youth through various very accessible social media and gaming platforms. The chair was there. I did a press conference along with members of the investigative team from both HRP and RCMP, where we really wanted to highlight, the danger that this activity presents itself and some of the steps that could be taken by parents and adults insurance to try to inoculate their children and some vulnerable adults as well from this type of activities. As stated at the conference, no local victims have been identified, but this case does reinforce the need for continued vigilance and education to protect our children and vulnerable individuals from online exploitation. We remain focused on prevention, public awareness, and proactive monitoring of emerging online threats. As well, on October 19th at approximately 9:55 a.m., police were called to Lower Flynn Park, which is an HRM designated location for those experiencing homelessness. A 30-year-old man was found suffering from gunshot wounds. He was transported to hospital with life-threatening injuries. Investigators do not believe this to be a random event, and the investigation remains ongoing. I also want to point out we released a media release today. Between May and June of this year, police responded to several incidents of someone targeting individuals from an online scam perspective. In these cases, a person would pretend to be a family member calling for saying they needed bail money, the bail money scam that's been going around for quite some time. On November 7th, officers arrested and charged Taryn Verma, 25, with 5 counts of fraud, for fraud under 5,000, 1 fraud over 5,000, as well as possession of property related to both of those events. I do want to, continue to reinforce, particularly, with newcomers or elderly, in Canada, law enforcement officials will never come to your home looking for bail money or call you in relation to bail money for anyone if any of your family is ever in any type of situation. And if you ever do get a call charges, and what I mean by no chat file, that would have allowed a charge to be laid. So in most cases, it's a matter of a verbal dispute between parties. Charges were laid in 79, which includes reports of physical assault, harassment, and uttering threats. Of the total domestic violence incidents, 26 were designated as high risk. And I'm sure you remember from our talk with Dolly in terms of that means they receive a score of 7 or higher on the ODERA, Ontario, the ODERA Domestic Assault Risk Assessment profile, and which includes choking and a criteria in terms of which allows to that element. There was also a critical development in 23 files, which refers to a file which was originally designated as high risk and where a new incident has occurred. So obviously still an ongoing problem. And I know if Commissioner Mancini was here, he'd be, that's something that obviously that's near and dear to all of us. So I think, but something that's obviously something that he's taken on. From a firearms perspective, so far within HRP jurisdiction this year, we've had 4 homicides related to firearms. There've been 5 homicides in total. 16 shooting incidents and 404 firearms have been seized. From a traffic perspective, HRP officers issued 747 summary offense tickets for various offenses, 28 charges laid for impaired operation of a motor vehicle, and 18 suspensions issued. And there were 67 calls to report suspected impaired driving and 49 investigations into impaired driving that were commenced because of it. As we start to move into the colder months, we'll be focusing on winter road safety. Obviously there was snow on the ground this morning when I came in. So, we remind people to slow down, drive conditions, and ensure that their windshields are not obstructed by ice and snow. It's even hard to say that now at this particular time of the year, because I was just golfing not too long ago. But that's the reality. From a community perspective, on October 19th, we marked the 43rd annual Fallen Police Officers Memorial that honors the peace officers who've given the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. Always a humbling reminder of the dedication to selflessness. I know some of you were at that event, and I thank you for that. On November 6th, I had the honor of welcoming a group of grade 9 students to our facility for Take Our Kids to Work Day. So a great, very robust, intensive day of where the group get to learn some of the different opportunities that our organization does, and as well get to see some of the things that some of their parents and adults in their life do on a daily basis.
What the police are doing?
Well, I think certainly we have a school officer program. We have officers within the schools so we'll continue to have those conversations. And one of the reasons I really want to get in front of I don't get in front of the media all the time for everything. But this was one of the ones where I think we really needed to, get out in front of folks, and let them know that this is what's going on. Sometimes we like to think, we're immune to some of these things. The online world is a vast place. So, but this was happening in our own backyards. Despite the fact that we said, we've seen no local victims, and the investigation remains ongoing, but certainly that's part of it in terms of, we really want to get out and ensure that, parents and adults are knowing what their children are doing. Because as I said in my press conference, this isn't happening on the dark web. This is happening in a lot of these sites that are being used on a daily basis by my own grandson in terms, Minecraft and some of these other things that, so we have to be very cognizant of what's going on and being, being involved. So and again, as I also said, I'm not suggesting everything that happens online is bad or all this. It's not. Clearly, it's not. It's a part of our lives and it's here to stay. We just have to make sure that we are vigilant in what our children are doing.
Commissioner Hinch.
I just have to say, I was at a community meeting this morning with our street navigator, Sean Parker.
Yep.
Yeah, and he expressed how great the session was between the cadets and the community. So yeah, he gave you guys kudos.
Yeah,
Just
thank
want to
you.
let you know that.
Commissioner Akindoju.
Thank you very much, Chief. I have 3 questions or 2, but I'll start with the police persecution and perception, which I simply term communication improvement, in line with what Commissioner Vincent said with the kids. But I'm not just looking at it on the with kids, but generally we've had so much negatives and little of positive, but because people do not know. And you don't blame people if they do not know. I know you have a few community meetings and where you have people. What are we doing strategically to improve communication with the public? I know you're doing a lot, but is there a clear strategy that maybe also that the police commission can also help? Because it seems it never changes. You do more every day. We see your presence. We see this. It seems the persecution, I call it. People just use the words and they do not see the goods or the goodies. What can we do to improve that communication and strategically push it out? Maybe I don't know if we have. I know you have magazines and all that, but I can't tell you. Maybe now, and I see a couple of social media things, but I want you to talk about that. Secondly, businesses, we are crying. were bleeding with break-ins and breakouts. And luckily, I was in an environment whereby some suggestions were made, and I think one of the provinces would have announced the opportunity of businesses, advising businesses to purchase and put around cameras. But not just that, registering those cameras is a different thing, which could enhance early detection or identification of these individuals. I know that dealing with the individual is different, but if they are identified, because one of the few things now you would see in some stores, we will show pictures of people who come into the store to steal. And you'll be shocked, the kind of people that will show on the cameras. You start seeing them going on, because we don't want to take the law into our hands, but there are some few things that police and the community can do together to improve that. I know that my business, we've supported in Dartmouth, when there was a theft of a vehicle, they came in next day to pick up a camera. Luckily, we were able to surrender the video, which really helped. So the question is, are we, I don't know what the law is, and I'm not a lawyer, able to now have businesses register those cameras so you know who has one, and if you need it for a particular street or an event, you know who to call on to. Thank you.
So I'll go back to your first question first. So in terms of, communications is one of the things, I think that's an ongoing, it's not a continuum, but it's an ongoing piece. One of the things I'll probably send to you tomorrow are the dispatch that I send you on a regular basis. I don't know if you share it with the rest of the, so that's an internal communication, which is obviously very important as well. So, we have a small but mighty communications team in terms that's constantly at the helm, looking at things to do, putting messages out and, having conversations about coming forward, and we'll always continue to work on those particular things. Social media avenues, we have all the social media lines that are important, because that's the only, for certain segments of our population, that's the only way to reach people in certain respects now, in terms of from generational perspectives. We would have just sent our communications manager actually on a course up to Ontario, where she had these very discussions with the rest of the Canadian policing landscape about what they're doing in some of their organizations about getting the message out. And it's not just about it's not meant to be performative in the sense of look at all the great, but it's meant to be both educational and a lot of other things. So I take your point in terms of, but it is a very important part of what we do in terms of the comms message. The part about retail theft, obviously is a very important piece as well. We will be looking at another retail blitz very shortly in terms of over the holiday period of time which will run through our divisional offices. The camera registry piece you were talking about, I think we were just talking about that actually with one of the IBC, the Insurance Bureau of Canada, in terms of looking at what are things we can do, because there are some registries out there that in certain jurisdictions, we don't have one per se right now, but there's nothing that stops us from looking at if businesses are willing to be involved in terms of getting a camera registry together, in terms of that's something we can certainly be a part of, in terms of recognize, because I can tell you that any major incident that occurs, one of the primary things that's one of the tasks that's on the the investigative list is canvassing the area for video, right? You actually and we're right in the spot now of getting our body in place, where we've actually you approved a position last year that's their job, actually, with a non-police position, in terms of being able to coordinate and having some obviously some skills in that area of being able to go through video and that sort of thing, in terms, because it's a very important piece. There's a lot of video that's out there. Certainly, there's publicly run video, like Metro Transit has a very robust camera system, as well as privately held video that's on a lot of different places. Having some of that put into all one place, I think, is something that I think we should probably look at going forward. And also, in terms of retail theft, had the occasion to go to a luncheon last week with the federal justice minister. So there have been some changes made through Bill C2, where it was looking at, adding those prolific offenders in terms of retail theft, in terms of getting them, involved in amendments to bail and that sort of thing, which I think is going to be very important going forward. There are some folks that steal out of, but then there's some way more organized things that have occurred. We saw it all downtown early this year, where we did a bit of a retail blitz and realized there are some folks that, well, for lack of a better word, they're in the business of stealing from folk in terms of, so it takes a little more of a coordinated effort. But on the back end too, they need to be dealt with differently than the person who's shoplifting in a store, or the kid or something like that. That's on a more one-off basis. So yeah. So to your point, I think all those things are actually very important going forward.
I just think, thank you so much for, I think it's something that you can at least step into without a lot of, just without even asking for registration, but knowing who has what ahead of events.
Yeah. Well,
that would be very helpful. Yeah. And I know you have zones and all that. It's something if I was in your shoe, I would do tomorrow. So I know on this street in Pleasance Avenue, Vanity Fashions Limited has 3 cameras, left, right. So it's not just break into my company, but what happens on that street.
I can tell you that a lot of that information is already known, in terms, because members deal with so many incidents in particular. They already know where most of the cameras are in terms of areas. A registry speaks to it. It's probably in a higher level of access. That's a whole different story. That's farther down the road. But in terms of identifying where, I think a lot of cases are members are well aware. Most cases we're certainly in the downtown areas and other more prolific type areas, just because of the abundance of calls they go to in those particular areas.
Commissioner Carter.
Yeah, Chief, thanks for the report. It was awesome. We gave us a lot of information, a lot of proactive things, and I like seeing that. I'll just comment on a couple of things quickly. The amount of times I see you in the community in various functions is very much proactive, and very good to see, because you're in touch with the public by the various things that you go to, including seeing you yesterday at the Remembrance Day Parade. The other thing is, it was nice to hear about the awards going to your members that you gave out recently, because you do it in a timely fashion, and you obviously have a policy around what meets the criteria, but you do it in a timely fashion. And it's important for motivating people, as well as keeping your morale of the organization high. Also, you're speaking to the new class at a very early stage. I think it's part of that proactive and demonstrating good leadership right from the beginning with them. And you make yourself approachable, obviously, when you do that. So again, thank you for that. That's very positive.
I just want to add, and I don't want to, so one of the things, and I can, speak to some of the folks that are here today, our employee engagement groups that got together, and in our recognition group that we have, and we've had it for a while. And one of the things they really stressed was timely recognition, right? Which is really, we've always done recognition to some degree, but timely recognition is very important. And sometimes that gets lost sometimes in terms of, just there's so many myriad of other things that are going on. But I can tell you now, the recognition board do a fantastic job of there's a fantastic job of members actually submitting things that people should be recognized for. And then the second part is obviously the recognition board coming together, reviewing those things under the set criteria that they have, and then determining what is the path forward. So, it's getting to the point where just about, I have management meetings twice a week. Just about at every one, I'm giving some type of recognition out to our members as we start, catching up and doing all this. So it's really great. And also not just recognizing our members but also recognizing, our retired members and bringing it back and thanking them for their service over the last number of years and those sort of things. It's important. It truly is, right? Amongst all the other things we do, it's no less, no more important than all those other ones. So thank you for noting that, because I think it is, certainly something very important.
Thank you. And on the in the lines of the previous comments on the cameras, I'm assuming that your members, when they're investigating things, that's part of their regular investigation.
It is now.
Knock on the
Yeah.
doors of neighbors and so on,
Yeah.
see if they have a Ring camera and that sort of thing. I'm assuming, and
Yeah.
am I correct to
Oh,
assume?
yes.
Yeah, okay, yeah. One last thing is just, you mentioned you mentioned some new policies or updates to policies, and one was your drone policy.
Yeah.
Just making a request that if we could see it, there's a few of us that are working on a use of force policy from us. And just, it links to that. So I'd just like to see it if we could, so.
But it would be publicly accessible. So,
Okay.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we can go through this year. That's fine. Yeah.
Appreciate it. So we'll look at that and tie it into what we're producing now. Thanks.
I didn't have a question. I started out by a question, but I think it was asked by several of the commissioners, and that was about HRP. What were your plans to reinforce the message that you shared to parents in the community? And I went to your news conference. I thought it was brilliant that you guys recognized the need to hold that event to help inform parents, guardians of kids in the world that they might entertain themselves in. I was going to suggest, the news conference was well done. There's probably lots of video clips from that. You could probably take and potentially compose something from your comments, Chief, and make it accessible maybe through HRM Communications website. Just a suggestion. But it's a very valuable message, but it needs to be repeated because it was just one time, one news cycle, and this continues to go on, and it's not going away. So, Commissioner Akintoju.
Thank you very much. I should have asked this question during the budget, so pardon me, I'm bringing it up, but I have to bring it up. It's a long time we've talked about your headquarters building. That's for me. If any of us have been there, it's not what I'm proud of at all. 2 years ago, we argued, we spoke about it. It was hot on the plate. It seems to have been buried. We do not talk about your capital budget a lot, but I want to bring this back. They keep talking about infrastructure. I sat down with two judges over coffee some few days back, and they were talking about how Halifax has been. Nothing has been done except for Few Roads extension. They still remember the old bridge and that, and of course they remember the whole police headquarters. I put my head down on the table. I couldn't speak. So I said I would ask you today, what are we doing about that project? Is it buried? Do we need to push it? Do we need to ask every time? I know it's HRM project, so please pardon me.
It's certainly not buried. I don't know if the commissioner wants to add to it. Certainly not buried. I think, we're in the process of still going through site identification in terms of that ultimately will end up at council at some particular place. So that still is the important part of that process is site identification.
I think that was where we were 2 years ago. 2 years
Well,
ago.
there's a multitude of reports that go into identifying sites, and certainly there's preference in certain areas, but there's both a logistical and I guess political angle to where that ends up at some particular time, but it's certainly not buried by any stretch of the imagination.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moore, did you want to add any comments to the Chief's comments?
Thank you, Chair. No, I think it's still an active project, but I'll undertake before the next meeting to get an update from Property, Fleet, and Environment that are actually taking the lead on the building. So it's not being managed out of the police department. So it's being managed out of the corporate infrastructure group at HRM.
But you have access to the capital budget. Is it even shown in the capital budget at all?
I'm looking up right now just to verify that.
Okay, because if it's not in the capital budget, it's not there. It's not. Nobody's thinking about it. And I'm thinking as a police commissioner, I want to see it. I want us to talk about it. If it's not spoken about, I will start to speak about it every meeting. The chair may tell me not to stop, but I'll continue to ask for that project every meeting.
You're not going to get any, you're not going to get any argument from me.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chief, I just have one more question. You mentioned about the 163 domestic violence related calls, incidents. You said there 84 were no charges, 79 were charges, 26 were deemed to be high risk. And then I wrote down, is there uniqueness here? And then all of a sudden you said 23 files, I think, of reoccurrence. Is that,
So
what was that again, sir?
that's there files which have been deemed to be a critical development in 23 files, meaning that it's a file which was originally designated as high risk at some point in the past, outside of that period of time, but where a new incident has occurred, which re-engages the high risk process again.
Is that 23 of the 26 or just 23
No,
additional?
these are,
Okay.
yeah.
And of the 79 charges or the 163, are those all unique persons, or is there repetition here amongst the same offenders?
There's probably some repetition in terms of, it's not broken down, like, so I can't say
Right.
for certainty in terms of that.
Keep getting called to the same address
yeah.
for something
Yeah.
similar. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
All right. We'll move on to our esteemed guest for the day, Superintendent Don Mosher, who's filling in for Chief Superintendent John Duff. Oh. Sure. Absolutely. We'll take 5 minutes. Technology is working. All right, we're reconvening. Superintendent Mosher, you have the floor.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Those folks that are watching from afar that might not have seen me before, my name is Superintendent Don Moser. I'm the Senior Operations Officer for Halifax Regional Detachment, and I do bring Chief Superintendent Duff's regrets. But he is on some well-earned leave, so happy to present HRD's update on his behalf. And I'll start with, I guess, what I'd categorize as significant operational updates, and I beg your patience because it's fairly lengthy. I think it's been a little while since we've had an opportunity to do that. Tuesday, October the 14th, an unfortunate police officer involved shooting in Eastern Passage. We were called with physical assault at a residence there. A adult female was quickly located brandishing an edged weapon. There were some compliance commands issued to drop that weapon. Subsequently, the discharging of a conducted energy weapon that was unsuccessful, and then the subsequent discharge of a firearm by one of our members, and that impacted that female. All the officers immediately administered first aid, and that person was transported to the hospital by EHS, however, pronounced deceased shortly thereafter. That matter is currently with the Nova Scotia Serious Incident Response Team. We are mindful of the impact to the community and to the families and the people and the officers involved, and where appropriate wellness support is being provided. On Sunday, November the 2nd, we responded to a homicide in the North Preston area. Upon arrival, located 28-year-old Jaden Tynes, and he was subsequently transported to the hospital by EHS. However, and unfortunately succumbed to his gunshot wounds. The investigation is being led by HRM's Integrated Criminal Investigations Division, and particularly the Major Crime Unit. Those and such impactful community violence incidents understandably raises community safety concerns, and we continue to work very closely with our community partners to enhance community safety and to work through those challenges. And we ask that anyone who may have witnessed information or dash cam footage to please immediately contact our integrated major crime team at 902-490-5333 or provide anonymous tips through Nova Scotia Crime Stoppers, whether through their online secure portal or by calling 1-800-222-TIPS. On Friday, October 17th, we responded to a fatal head-on collision on Highway 107 that resulted in the loss of 2 lives. And those incidents as well, deeply impactful to the families, to the community, and obviously to the responders. We conducted a follow-on response to that tragedy, which focused on the Highway 107 area, in particular road safety, during the week of October 27th, and those efforts were led by our HRD Traffic Services team. And I mention that because over the course of those 3 days, we issued 160 summary offense tickets, and 132 of those were for speeding. The highest speed noted was 146 kilometers per hour in a 60 kilometer an hour zone. The remaining 28 tickets were for other offenses such as unregistered vehicles, expired safety inspections, and no insurance, and there were several warnings issued as well. On Wednesday, October the 1st, the HRD-based street crime enforcement team conducted an investigation that was supported by our RCMP critical incident program. We executed 2 warrants, one in the Porters Lake area and another in the Bedford Highway areas. We safely arrested 2 men. As a result, numerous weapons, including 2 loaded handguns. One of those handguns, by the way, had no serial number. 10 long guns, switchblades, cocaine, MDMA, and other drug paraphernalia. And proud to say that those were successfully removed from our HRM streets. And both those men are charged with numerous weapons offenses, as well as possession for the purposes of trafficking. On Thursday, October the 9th, our HRD-based CART team, our Community Action Response Team, arrested 3 men and executed a search warrant as part of an investigation into drug trafficking to unhoused persons in Lower Sackville. Frank Duffy was charged with possession for the purposes of trafficking, weapons, had weapons charges, and possession of property obtained by crime. I hope you'll agree that these efforts underscore the important role that this CART program certainly plays within that collective response to homelessness in support of the larger HRM public safety picture, but in particular within our vulnerable communities. On Sunday, October the 12th, we responded to an armed robbery in Enfield. There, a man armed with a sensory irritant robbed a store of cigarettes and cash before fleeing on foot, and we deployed one of our frontline drones, which helped to ensure that man was apprehended safely and quickly. And he's now facing charges of robbery and assault with a weapon. On Wednesday, October the 15th, we responded to the reports of gunshots being heard in and around the area of Riverside Drive and Lower Sackville. And at that time, HRD, we were unable to locate evidence of a shooting or victims. And the following day, as a result of additional witness information, our team was able to locate a residence that did have what we believe to be bullet holes. And fortunately, no one's believed to be injured. That matter is still under investigation. On Saturday, October the 18th, our HRD team was instrumental in a successful Lake Charlotte ATV Association annual fall rally, ATV rally. A considerable amount of time and consideration put into the operational planning to support that event, and our risk assessment revealed threats related to a planned disruption and a blockade. Those were identified and I would say effectively thwarted. So HRD's partnership with the community and Department of Natural Resources played a key role throughout that planning process, and that response and those partnerships, I'm happy to say, are pivotal in achieving safe and successful public safety outcomes. On Friday, October 21st, we arrested a man after he refused to comply with a breath screening demand after a motor vehicle crash on Highway 102. And after that man unsuccessfully tried to bribe, and I'll say it again, tried to bribe the responding officer, he was subsequently became combative during the prisoner administration process as we were booking him in. And as a result of his actions, and I would say probably less than well thought out decision making process, he now faces charges of impaired driving, refusal to comply with a breath screening demand, bribery of a police officer, resisting a police officer, and failing to comply with an undertaking. I'm getting there, working through it here. Thanks for your patience. On October 23rd, HRM's Integrated Criminal Investigation Division charged 2 people after executing a search warrant in Middle Sackville. Our integrated guns and gangs team, with the assistance of our wider HRD team, safely arrested a man and a woman, and the search yielded cocaine, crystal methamphetamine, a shotgun, a stolen ATV, and cash. And both persons face charges of drug trafficking, whereas the man is also facing additional charges of laundering proceeds of crime, possession of property obtained by crime, weapons and firearms offenses, plus failing to comply with a judicial release order. And lastly, on Monday, October 27th, we responded to an armed and barricaded male reported to be in mental distress in the Waverley area of Nova Scotia. That male was safely arrested with the support of our critical incident response team and our police dog services. And as a result, a long gun was seized there. That investigation remains ongoing, but I do believe we're expecting charges. I'm going to turn sort of in this final phase to the community response lens. And I'm glad that we've mentioned Remembrance Day, and I pointedly will remark that I remember seeing Commissioner Carter there yesterday. It was good to have some conversations with him on the parade square. But those who attended any of the Remembrance Day ceremonies within HRD's area of responsibility would have noted a strong HRD presence there, both not only in Red Surge, but also in a public safety support role. We were at over 19 Cenotaph locations yesterday. Many positive comments of support were made, and I thank everybody there who took part, an opportunity to pause and reflect on the sacrifices made by so many to ensure a safe and secure Canada. Operation Christmas is about to start, as most folks would anticipate. HRD and its partners will be focusing our frontline efforts to reduce impaired driving throughout the upcoming holiday season. Please expect to see our team conducting increased high visibility checkpoints while bolstering the public awareness to keep our roadways safe. And just a very kind reminder that the 2024 HRM road safety strategy highlights the importance of safe infrastructure, public education, community engagement, but also targeted enforcement. And that's all guided by collision data analysis. And HRD would like to remind everybody that road safety is everybody's responsibility, and we hope that you'll make good choices over the holidays. And then lastly, in hopes of ending on a more positive note of some of the stuff that I spoke about today, on Wednesday, December 3rd, I believe that's before the next board meeting, the HRD team is excited to participate in our second annual Cops and Kids shopping event, and that's a partnership with our jolly and generous friends at Micmac Mall and the community. An amazing event aligns to a long-standing and successful event led by HRP and the Halifax Shopping Center over quite a long period of time. And these initiatives focus on bringing together deserving youth from our communities and an example of how HRM police value positive police and youth interactions. And I've participated in these events over the last 20 years across both Halifax Regional Police and with the RCMP, and I can personally attest that they never fail to fill up your heart at a time of the year where there's many people facing challenges on our communities. So that's kind of it for today. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, and I thank you, and I welcome any questions. However, I ask you to defer any questions about my mustache until the end of November, please.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any questions for the Superintendent? Commissioner Hinch.
Thank you so much for the update. And this question would probably be for the both of you. I've been getting several emails, several calls with regards to speeding. Everybody wants a speed bump on their street. Is there, and it's only continued to get worse as far as I can see. Is there any suggestions, anything that I could do to alleviate some of the concerns that the residents do have?
One thing I'll say is continue to advocate for provincially the ability for red light speed cameras and as such through the legislation in terms, because this is not a new phenomenon.
Yeah.
I jokingly say I went to a community meeting actually in Africa
Mm-hmm.
back years ago, and what did they complain about? Speeding and youth complaints. I was like I never left home. Like in terms of, but that's a reality. The answer isn't speed bumps everywhere. There's other issues that come with speed bumps, but that's part of it. Enforcement is one part of it.
Yes.
But even then, no one's going to be everywhere all the time at, in every place. But, but certainly I think, that is something that I think we need to continue to focus on clearly. But, there are other things to address that as well, I think, outside of just traditional enforcement.
Thank you for your question, Commissioner. I'll go back, but I'll underscore, HRM is an excellent road safety strategy, and it's been refreshed. There's some excellent pillars within there. Again, and I'll say safe infrastructure, public education, community engagement, targeted enforcement. We've learned a long time ago, and I think the chief hopefully would agree with me in our plus 30 years doing this work, that it's hard to ticket your way out of that problem. The chief says we can't be everywhere all the time doing everything. But we can, if we know, then we can apply strategic, enforcement efforts. And so I would encourage people to keep voicing their concerns, bring them to the attention of the police jurisdiction, and we can work with them, with some of our other partners to hopefully come up with solutions. But I would agree, speed bumps are an aspect, certainly not the solution, but we have to look at the wider lens of that. And there's a lot of smart people, and usually that we can find solutions that work for those communities. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yeah.
Commissioner Carter.
Yeah, I just had one and a question on the, because you mentioned both the chief and yourself mentioned different firearms offenses. Just curious to kind of a brief breakdown. Is it people without, obviously there's other criminal activity, but is it people without a PAL? Is it loaded firearms? I think, Chief, you mentioned they had some loaded firearms in one case of yours. What's the breakdown in the firearms offenses?
Well, thank you for the question, Commissioner. And although I don't have the specific details on what I mentioned today about any of the licensing elements, I would be comfortable and perhaps overextending myself when I say I doubt very much any of them were licensed gun owners or had legal purpose to have those weapons. And we continue as we focus our work certainly on the criminal element and act on information. There are no shortage. There's no shortage of work to do there, and we're working as hard as we can with the resources we have to get the results that we're talking about today. But the licensing piece, I could certainly go away and do some work on that and come back, but I wouldn't have the facts and details on those today.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Bezic-Escamar.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Superintendent, for the report. Just want to build on Commissioner Hinch's question about speeding. I'm really glad to hear that that your team did a blitz after that Highway 107 crash. I think that's striking when the iron is hot, when people had seen the news that the crash happened, and that example you cited of the highest speed in that zone, I think really strikes to the heart of the matter there. I guess I just wanted to give more positive reinforcement to that. You mentioned before that with your team, before you leave the parking lot, you know why you're turning left or why you're turning right based on the data. So appreciate how you incorporated that into your plan and approach there. My question has to do with the armed arrests, building on Commissioner Carter's question. Was your armored vehicle used in any of those? It seems like the sort of thing that it might have been necessary. I'm not sure if we're actually getting reports from your team as to when an armored vehicle is used, but I'm interested to know. Thank you.
Typically, when our investigations are supported by our critical incident program, that would be one of the tools. Although it's part of the risk assessment and how they apply that program, I would say typically it would be a tool that they would have available. It would be usually something that we would have pushed forward to support our teams to make sure that they're either have a safe positioning or the public safe, where we have an ability to sort of adjust our plans on the fly. But as far as data on each one of those, I couldn't speak to it on the fly, but it certainly is something I could come back to. But I would say typically, I would expect that would be deployed. Every time our critical incident program is deployed, I would expect that would be something that would be there in support of that program.
Maybe I could ask our policing policy strategist, with our ARV policy, I know we requested on a yearly basis, I think, reporting on usage of HRP's new vehicle. Did we also ask in that policy for HRD's use of a similar type of asset?
The policy is specific to HRP, so does not apply to HRD.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other questions? All right, we're going to move on to 10.2, Community Safety Update. And Rachel Bohm, the Executive Director of Community Safety, is going to give us an overview of what's going on. Rachel, the floor is yours. While Rachel gets ready, maybe I could invite Commissioner Moore just to add a little bit more context in response to Commissioner Akindoju's question around a replacement for the police station. Commissioner Moore.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Through the chair, to the commissioners, there is a capital project. It's in the public capital project book in 2526, a capital project number CB 000022, HRP Police Headquarters. There has been a recent update to the capital plan that will be coming out in the public domain, but there are funds allocated to the project now, approximately $1.2 million, and then additional 2.5 and then $8 million in other years. But that'll be subject to change because they're doing some rebalancing of capital. So I have looked at some other numbers, and once those are available, I can provide that to the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Rachel.
Thank you. Just a few updates from our community safety business unit. Our community mobilization team has been engaged with communities responding to organize a response and heal in the aftermath of tragic incidents that occurred in Mulgrave Park and the Preston areas. And the CMT teams are made up of staff and some specially trained volunteers, and they play an important role in the prevention of violence and healing from harms in the aftermath of events. Our community safety team regularly partners with HRP and RCMP on concerns that communities elevate to us around safety issues. So recent examples include concerns raised by neighborhoods, for instance, neighbors of the Lower Flynn encampments, businesses in the Quinpool district, and individuals and businesses in North End Halifax. So we often organize collaborative meetings and strategize together, and rarely is it that the concerns raised by communities can be addressed by one partner in isolation. So we often collaborate on providing appropriate responses. HRM staff had a strong presence at the Safe Cities Conference that was held last week in Halifax. Our mayor spoke at the opening event, and this group, of which Halifax is a founding member, is playing a pivotal role in prevention of social polarization and the prevention of violent extremism. Through this annual conference, municipalities can share and learn about best practices and what is working in other jurisdictions that can be applied in our own community. HRM will actually be on the leading edge of preventing violent extremism, as we've been selected as a pilot site for Project Upstream. So Project Upstream is a 2-year project funded by Public Safety Canada that scales up multi-sectoral partnerships. And the focus is on assessing and addressing indicators of social polarization and hate that can lead to violence. One promising yet underutilized strategy in the prevention of violent extremism is the development of collaborative partners that bring together a diverse range of partners to foster resilience and model social cohesion or sense of belonging in communities at multiple levels. Promising practices include addressing this type of violence before it occurs and identifying early warning signs, working on prevention. I had previously mentioned our new CARE pilot, and we're about a month in. So a little early to report on any data, but we've seen a promising uptake in calls, with about half coming directly from individuals and the other half coming from either agencies, family members, or the public. Remember, anyone can access this service by calling 211. So if you are aware of a person in distress, it's a great alternative to emergency services or law enforcement if the person isn't at risk of violence or in need of a medical assessment. Work is underway to fully integrate RCMP and HRP and other related emergency services into the 211 dispatch. And training and service agreements are under development currently with those agencies. I'll give an update on our designated encampments and homelessness situation. The Cogswell encampment is now entirely closed, with the last resident being matched to a housing option recently. We've given notice to the residents at Lower Flynn encampment with a notice of closure effective December 7. The good news is that the number of indoor shelter and temporary housing options is sufficient for the number of individuals currently living at Lower Flynn. With the cold weather underway, getting people inside is so important. The work we'll focus now on in the coming weeks is to understand each individual living at Lower Flynn and their specific needs, to match them to the most appropriate option for their needs. Not everyone is a match for every option. So it's very important to have an individualized approach. And our outreach team really works at that level to get people housed. Currently, we have about 59 individuals living in our designated encampments. And when Lower Flynn closes, we will have 2 sites remaining. That is my report for this time, but I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Rachel. Any questions? Commissioner Akindoju.
Apparently, my question is not for you, but something I forgot to bring up at the last budget meeting that relates to this, and probably to the number of calls that come into the police.
Can we hold off on that question until we finish questions related to Rachel's presentation, and then we can do your question?
Okay, because it might relate to calls, emergency and non-emergency calls.
Okay. Well, let's focus on the specifics of Rachel's conversation.
Okay,
Then
all right.
we'll close with your question. Commissioner Bezic-Escamilla.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Rachel, for the report. Glad to hear that the CARE pilot is pressing ahead and going well. You didn't give any specific numbers. I'm just curious as to how many calls there actually have been. Are you able to share that?
I don't want to share data because the numbers in the initial weeks are quite low, so it could present privacy issues. And it wouldn't be a good representation, but I would say calls aren't as high as we had hoped, but we are confident they are growing, and we are out. Since the team isn't getting as many calls right now, their focus is really to get out to agencies and public spaces to share the word. I think a lot of the need is really to raise awareness because this is a new option for people to call.
Thanks very much. I think that mirrors the experience with Acorn in Ottawa and the experience in Toronto as well, that as word gets out, it'll snowball from there. But thank you for that. Appreciate it. Thanks for all your work.
Commissioner Hinch.
Thank you, Rachel. So CMTs, I'm still trying to understand what their role is and how they work. What supports would have provided to Mulgrave Park area when it came to the incident down there? Just wondering.
So volunteers are representatives of those communities, work in the communities at the grassroots level.
Okay.
And one tangible thing is they're having a night of caring
Okay.
in each of those communities related to the particular incidents.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, I have a question for you related to the mechanics of working through the SOPs or whatever that you're going to use with IES. Those are in production or design still?
Yes, there's a number of agreements and procedures, standardized operating procedures that need to be in place to manage the risk of, as you can imagine, when you're
Yeah.
transitioning calls that may or may not be high risk, and making those determinations, that we just need to have really good processes in place, and then training for everyone to action those protocols as needed. And we're dealing with two different police agencies as well as 911 operators. So, there's some training that is part of this implementation phase, as well as developing the procedures.
And just related to that, in terms of the, until that is in place, does that infer that no calls will be transferred that come into the 911 IES service to the CARE program?
No direct transfers from 911 will occur, but that doesn't mean that police agencies can't inform people of the service and make it available to people who choose to consent to that sort of response.
Thank you.
And that is occurring, I believe. Yeah.
Right. And just related to that, I realize that there's IES, but with the 911 model, calls could flow over during busy times to some of the other 911 centers, like at the RCMP's OCC or even at CBRM. The calls could flow up there. Are you thinking about that in terms of your training, that those 911 operators become aware that they could receive a call that could be related to the CARE program for Halifax?
That's a technical question that I couldn't answer today, but I can find out for you. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for Rachel? Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Akindoju. Let's go back to your budget question.
Well, it's really not a budget question, but it's related to budget. It's basically the issue of emergency and non-emergency calls as it relates to the business of IES. Generally worldwide, I mean, I grew up with 911. And if we asked at that time, and I'm speaking to both chiefs, to separate what are real emergency calls that are 911 and non-emergency calls, you would probably have a huge percentage of non-emergency calls going to the IES. I tried to find out there's still this other number, 902, blah, 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 which is supposed to be for non-emergency calls. You can imagine that nobody remembers the 902, blah, blah, blah. The first thing everybody remembers is 911. So I'm just suggesting that along with public communication and all this stuff, can we not recreate a number, just 3 digits, 119 or 2, something simple for non-emergency calls? And when people start to understand those numbers, the calls going to IES would definitely start to it won't happen in 1 year. I don't never plan 1 year. I plan over a period of time. But if we change behavior using simple things, it will be better. If you want to call the police today, you call 911. Oh, they find out it's not emergency. They tell you to call 902, and people just drop it off. So it's better for us to start to bring up smaller numbers and we can also inform the public. It's just a suggestion of those numbers, maybe 119 or something similar to that. And you would see a lot of calls over years going down with the IES. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Did you?
I like to
Simplicity,
thank you for
yeah.
liking it. But I'd like to hear a comment from the chiefs. If it's something it's a strategic thing that you want to develop rather than just or trying. We throw the same dart on the same problem year over year. Let's just do something different. I'm just saying.
Yeah, to the commissioner, I know, I mean, 311 exists, 211 exists. I don't know. I can't answer what the process is to take a, a 7-digit number, I guess, well, actually 10-digit number now with the prefix and making them a 3. I have no idea what that process actually entails. So I don't know if
Well, the process starts from thinking about it and
Yeah.
putting up with a strategy. And honestly, I can tell you, like I said, it's not going to work in the first year.
Yeah.
People will learn, and you'll see the effect on the IAS. And,
Thank you, Commissioner. Let's move on to item 10.3.2, which is related to the 10.3.3 as well, which was something I wanted to rush into right at the beginning of the meeting. All right, we're going to go into supplemental administration policies of the board. And so to need to start this process off, I have to ask for a commissioner to put the motion on the table, or on the floor, sorry. Commissioner Carter, Madam Clerk, are we able to put that up on the board? All right, Commissioner Carter, would you like to read the motion, please?
The motion is, I'll read off this one. The motion is that the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality, 1, adopt the amended policy, supplemental administrative policies of the board as outlined in attachment 1 of the staff report dated October 22nd, 2025, and 2, the policies entitled Authority to Create Board Policies, Board Rules, and Responsibilities, and Role of Chair, Vice Chair, Meetings, Procedures, Policy, and Board of Self-Evaluation be removed from the policy manual.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Commissioner Bezic-Escalante. We're going to invite Josh Bates, our policing strategist, to give us some comments on this particular motion.
Thank you, Chair. So the board approved this policy in principle at our last meeting. So the motion before you today is to formally adopt the policy as presented in the attachment to the report. The report highlights a few changes from the version of the policy that you considered last month. The first change is to include the words other individuals after academics in clause 6, so that it reads as collaboration with academics and other individuals with expertise in the subject area. And this change reflects the fact that individuals with valuable knowledge and experience who are not academics may be consulted in producing board policies. The second suggested change is to clause 7 of the draft policy, and there are 2 proposed changes to that clause. The first is to replace the word create with implement and update, so that it will read as such policies adopted by the board will trigger the HRP to implement or update an operational policy. And this change reflects the fact that in many cases, HRP may have an existing policy or already be doing important work in a given area. The second change to Clause 7 is to add language to ensure alignment between board and HRP policies in the form of an information report brought forward to the board. And the last thing I'll say is that the second part of the recommendation is to remove several policies from the policy manual, as you saw. And this is because the content of these policies either are covered in the policy we're considering today, or will be covered through proposed amendments to Administrative Policy 1, which is next on our agenda. And all of this work is really part of the board's ongoing process to refresh our policy manual. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Josh? I would like to, I was reviewing it, and I wouldn't mind introducing a small little amendment. My vice chair is not here, so I can't excuse myself. If the board will entertain me, I'd like to read a friendly, hopefully what is a friendly amendment. So it would be in Clause 7, and that reads today, if outlined in the policy, policies adopted by the board will trigger the HRP to implement or update an operational policy that meets the requirements as outlined in the board policy. Such policies adopted by the board will cause the HRP, and this is what I would like to add, to collaborate in producing an information report. So just to get a little more collaboration between our police service and our policy staff in terms of making alignments. So would we want to add that to the screen, or I guess we don't necessarily need to do that. Yeah, it would be to collaborate in producing, to insert those 4 words in Clause 7, right after where it says such policies adopted by the board will cause the HRP to collaborate in producing. Would Commissioner Carter support that friendly amendment? Thank you. And Commissioner, to collaborate in producing. So as opposed to HRP working independently to do that assessment, to work in collaboration with our policy staff to produce. Section 7, Clause 7. On the, it's on page 2. In number 7, under authority to create board policies. Third line. Okay, thank you. Any comments that any of the commissioners wanted to make, or?
I'll just comment that I think these changes are fairly straightforward. It makes good sense that we don't listen to just academics, but the expertise and the lived experience of those that may have points of perspectives to share with us. So I think that makes good sense to change.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? So we'll go to the question as amended. So we're voting on the motion as amended with the inclusion of the addition that I made. So all those in favor, support by saying aye. Motion's carried. All right, we'll move on to 10.3.3, amendments to the Board of Police Commissioners Administrative Policy 1. Again, I'd ask that a commissioner put the motion on the floor. Thank you, Commissioner Hinch.
I move that the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality amend Administrative Policy 1. The procedures of the Board of Police Commissioners Administrative Policy as followed per the highlighted portion in attachment 1 of the staff report dated October 31st, 2025. 1, amend Administrative Policy 1's title to Administrative Policy 1, respecting the procedures for meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners. 2, amend Section 1 of Administrative Policy 1 so that Administrative Policies 1 short title for oh, sorry. Citing, purpose is administrative policy number 1, the procedures for meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners. I didn't know it was so long. 3, after section 99 of the administrative policy, 1 includes the heading elections and appointments and a new section 100 under the subheading of elections of chairs, vice chairs, and new section 101 under the subheading attendance policy. 4, renumber the remaining sections of administrative policy 1 after the new section 101, beginning with section 102 under the heading committees. And 5, amend the existing election and appointment heading before the current section 103 to read the elections and appointments of committees. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now, for the easy job, can someone second that? Commissioner Bezic Escalera, thank you. And Madam Clerk, did you like to speak to this, please?
Sure, Chair O'Malley. So essentially, these amendments to Administrative Policy 1 come out of Josh's new policy for the supplemental administrative policies of the board, so that things that were removed from the policy manual are now being moved into the Administrative Policy 1 because they relate more to meetings. So specifically, the elections and appointments, the election of chair and vice chair, and the attendance policy have been moved into Administrative Policy 1. And also, the title of Administrative Policy 1 has been clarified so that it's obvious that it applies to meeting procedures for the Board of Police Commissioners. And then the other amendments are there specifically just to kind of adjust the numbering of the sections because of the additions of the 2 new sections.
Thank you. Mr. Ward is going to offer a few comments as well. Thank you.
To Andrea's point, this reads a lot more complex than it really is. It's just, I was listening to Commissioner Hinch read it off and thinking, I don't even understand it as it's being read. But really, essentially, it does 2 things. It distinguishes between the 2 administrative policies, one that relates to the procedural rules of the board and one which relates to things that are not part of the procedural rules. And secondly, it moves the area of the elections of officers, which really should have been in the other procedure, and so it just moves it over. And that's it. Andrew, is that fair? Yes. That's fair. So please vote for it.
Any questions on it?
I have
Commissioner
a question.
Akindoju.
I have a question concerning the first amendment. Amending administrative policies, policy title, administrative policy 1, respecting procedure for meetings. What does that mean?
Sorry, can you repeat that question, please, Commissioner?
My reference is amendment 1. Amend administrative policy 1's title.
Yes.
The title, you're just amending the title.
Yes,
And
we're making it
In quote, administrative policy 1, respecting the procedures for meetings. What does that mean?
So basically, our meeting procedures that we use during our meetings, as well as for the procedures and rules that we follow when agendas are prepared, when agendas are reviewed at Agenda Review Committee, and the certain rules that we use with respect to motions and that sort of thing. So basically, that's what the meeting procedures relate to.
Okay, so what are we amending?
We're basically amending the title to include for meetings in the title, because currently
Oh, okay, I get it.
for meetings is not in the title
Okay,
of the
I get
main
it.
policy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Call for the question. All those in favor? Excellent. Motion carried. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to uh, 10.3.4, the Board of Police Commissioners 2026 meeting schedule. Could I ask that a commissioner put the motion on the floor? Commissioner Bezic-Escalera.
Thanks, Chair. I move that the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality approve the proposed meeting schedule of 2026 as outlined in attachment 1 of the staff report dated 14th October 2025.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Hinch, for seconding. Any comments, any concerns about the drafts or the schedule that we're about to put in place for next year? Okay, we'll call for the question. All those in favor? Okay, motion carried. All right, we'll move on to 10.4. Members of the Board of Police Commissioners. So 10.4.1 is a motion that I was going to read in. Vice Chair is not here today. Can I ask the board's indulgence to allow me to read this motion into the record? Thank you, board members, colleagues. So this motion is entitled Approach to Halifax Regional Police Next Strategic Plan. So the motion is that the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality direct the Chief of the Halifax Regional Police to submit a staff report to the board no later than January 2026, outlining its approach to produce HRP's next strategic plan. The staff report should include the following elements. Time period for the strategic plan will cover, an approach to ensuring alignment with Regional Council's strategic priorities, in the spirit of the police transformation study, an approach to working with HRD on its strategic plan, including those elements of the plan that will require HRD involvement to achieve, the role of the board in overseeing the development of the strategic plan, and any resources required to produce the plan, including the hiring of an external facilitator. I so move. Can I have a seconder, please? Commissioner Hinch, thank you. I'll talk about why this motion was brought forward. HRP strategic plan, I think, is in the order of 10 plus years old and was expiring in 2025. So there's a need to create a new plan. And this motion here is about coming back with an approach and a methodology for how HRP would go about creation of the plan. Is there any questions, concerns, discussion?
My question is, if they had a strategy plan expiring 2025, shouldn't HRP would have commenced a new strategy before now, before being told on what you have highlighted A to E, or are you just asking them to include that? Do they not have a new strategy plan to be presented to take care of the old one? Are they just going to start planning the strategy plan?
Just one second. I'm going to ask the chief to share his thoughts and perspectives on where that process sits now.
Yes, so to the commissioner in terms of, well, ideally, but there are other things at play. So the HRM is building a strategic plan right now. It would probably be unwise to have a strategic plan that sits outside of HRM's, not waiting until they're actually completed and in flight, which your motion actually speaks to in terms of making sure that the two are aligned. The work itself, I think, will take place at some point. But we've been in talks with HRM for the last, I don't know how long, last year, about their strategic plan, about what that looks like. And so we've always said that we would, move ours along with theirs to ensure that there was, a symbiosis.
So to my question is there anything being asked here that is not already in place? I mean, has nothing to do with the chair's motion. I'm just asking, are we asking for a new thing here? All these items here, I would have assumed would be part of what you have in place right now.
Well, we have a strategic plan that's already in place right now.
which expires in 2025.
That expired. Like I said, it was a 10-year plan. So I'm not sure when HRMs is posted. It's in flight. I know that.
Commissioner Moore.
Thank you, Chair, through the commission. So the strategic plan outline has been provided to council. The action plan, I believe, is going as an information item at the next council meeting coming up. So that plan is basically ready. The other thing I would suggest as well is with the introduction of the new police bylaw, the board has a requirement to have a strategic plan as well to be updated. So, the timing of aligning HRM's plan with the board's plan with the HR, it makes sense to kind
Policing
of,
review, transformation, like there's a lot of things that are in flight.
Did that answer your question? Basically, the plan that was is at the end of its cycle.
Yeah.
It was a 10-year plan. There's many others, the board has an obligation to produce a new strategic plan. Ours is 5 years old, I think, is it not, Josh?
Should be.
Or,
No.
Until this year, we weren't required to have a strategic plan. We had an annual work plan, which is separate from the strategic plan.
yeah, thank you. And HRM's producing their new strategic plan. So this was about, let's figure out how we're going to work together to produce plans that are aligned, as opposed to doing them compartmentalized. So the chief is waiting for HRM's plan to finish. We want to ensure that our planning activities are aligned with the chief's. And if the chief's going to do, for example, stakeholder consultations with the community as part of his plan, that we're aware of that and we can become engaged and involved with that process. That's essentially what this is about, is share us what your plan is to developing a plan. And it might be we're not going to start it until sometime in 2026 because of waiting for HRM to finalize and adopt their plan.
The one question I had, I'm not sure if actually
Well, my question is, what is this going to change? I mean, culturally, HRD, correct? And HRP will meet and create a strategic plan, and that's in progress.
Yeah.
Now, are we asking to change that and implement some of the few things that I highlighted here, or are they already part of your plan?
So I think I don't think you're asking for anything new in the grand scheme of that. This is
That's what I'm thinking. Are we asking for a new thing right now?
But this is a documentation of the things that we're going to do going forward.
This is a formalization
Yes,
of the
word I'm looking
process.
for, yeah.
We're trying to formalize the process of working together and document it so that they come back with, here's how we're going to work together. Josh, would you like to add comments to that?
Yeah, sure. All I'll add is that one of the board's functions under the Police Act is to ensure a strategic plan and business plan is in place. So this is formalizing that practice, showing some board ownership over the process by requesting this documentation.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Should we call for the question? All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you, sir. Thank you, commissioners. So we are deferring item number 10.4.2, and we're deferring 10.4.3, and we're on to 10.4.4. Commissioner Bezic-Escalard, which is entitled Staff Report on Metrics to Use to Assess Effectiveness of Police Services. Commissioner, would you like to put the motion on the floor?
Thanks, Chair. And I'll note that I'll be amending the wording based on some discussion before the meeting. So I would move that the Board of Police Commissioners for the Halifax Regional Municipality request the Commissioner for Public Safety to provide a staff report on recommended metrics to use to assess the effectiveness of police services with reference to best practices in Canada and globally.
Are all the commissioners okay to the commissioner's proposed amended language? Okay. And can we have a seconder? Commissioner Carter, thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Commissioner?
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. So the question stems from some of the discussion from the budget meeting at the last meeting. The idea of having some standardized metrics to make a dashboard for us to look at how effective police services are doing. It would allow us to track things over time, as well as to compare ourselves to other jurisdictions as well. It does touch to some points that came up at this meeting with respect to perhaps call volume and how that might change with the ongoing CARE pilot program, for example. I didn't put anything into the motion that specifies any particular metric that I'm personally interested in. I think the commissioner's team within the Public Safety Commission would be able to do the expert research into what would make good sense, looking at not just what is feasible and manageable for HRP and hopefully HRD to provide us, but also things that would be meaningful to make those comparisons and tracking over time. My hope is that by having a dashboard like this, we'll be able to confirm to ourselves that our police services are as effective as we believe them to be. There was a poll that was just announced today by the Leger Institute for the Study of Canada showing that the police services in Canada are overall the second most trusted institution in Canada after the military. About 70 to 75% of Canadians agree that they trust their police services. So I think data from a dashboard like this, as well as the community survey, which will be launched shortly, will help us to understand how effective our police services are and shape things going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just before moving on to ask other commissioners, our community survey has actually been out in the street for a number of months now, and we're surveying monthly, and we'll be coming back to the board with some interim results. Will we not, Josh, shortly?
Yeah, that is correct. The data collection started in September.
Yeah.
And they go into the field at the end of the month. Like I think for November, they're going to be going, after the 20th. So unfortunately, we're not going to have an infographic in time for our December 3rd meeting, but we will have an infographic for January.
Thank you, Josh. Would any commissioners like to comment on the motion? Commissioner Akindoju.
Thank you very much. I agree with this. My only fear it's open-ended. I would assume that you're asking for a metrics that to use to assess the effectiveness of police services. There's so many police services that I would assume that it's being referred to here. Are we being specific? Can we be specific? Or basically, I mean, my question is, what are we asking Josh to do? How many pages? How do we design the metrics to measure the effectiveness of police services? So that's. I just want us to be very careful about what we're asking for and how we direct the policy writer to give us something. So I understand this. I really like to have metrics to measure performance, but what area of service are we looking at?
Commissioner Bezic-Escanlar, would you like to respond to the commissioner's question for additional information?
Thanks, Commissioner Akindoju. Maybe I'll actually ask Mr. Bates if he has any points, but what I had in mind was the team would make reference to some common established standards, such as the Canadian Police Performance Metrics Framework or the 7 dimensions of a balanced scorecard and selected key performance indicators. So if you, just by Googling those, you can find some established metrics that have been used by Stats Canada for common reporting. But maybe Josh can have some, give us some guidance, and also specify to us if he needs any specific additional direct guidance in this motion to help his work. Over.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. So I'll answer the second part first. I think this is, it need not be prescriptive. I think it's, the fact that it's broad can be a good thing. It allows those of us working on the report lots of room to maneuver. You referenced some academic research that's already been out there. There's also lots of police boards that do have metrics. So I'd be referring to that in addition to the survey, right, to look at trust in police, right? So we have some national numbers. What are the local numbers? So I think, and I see this very much tying into the strategic plan, right? And last thing I'd say is, of course, I'd work closely with in HRP and HRD in developing the metrics, because of course, the board and police services need to work closely together on anything we're going to produce. So I think the wording is sufficient to provide us guidance in producing the report.
Does this include operational services as well?
I think it very well could, and I think it should include operational services. Like I said, we would be working with HRP on producing the metrics.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Bezic-Escalera.
I would just emphasize that my hope is that this isn't a make-work project in any way, and that the numbers that the team will come up with are the sort of thing that would be readily available and feasible for the HRP team, and hopefully the HRT team to come up so as to not create any unnecessary administrative burden. I'm hoping that this is truly a value added to police oversight and governance for HRM. Thank you.
No, and absolutely, and it might require some, research in terms of the data that's available today, readily accessible, or that could be harvested, mined from the various databases that we use in policing services like our CAD or our RMS system and stuff like that. So, any other questions before we call the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 11, nothing there. No added items for number 12, correct? Madam Clerk?
That is correct, Chair.
No in-camera meeting and any notices of motion. I know the clerk has indicated that we don't have any notices of motion. No other notices of motion from any of the commissioners. Date of the next meeting is December 3rd. Motion to adjourn, please. Thank you, Commissioner Bezic-Escalera. Pardon me? Yeah, you can vote on that one.